Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. In this week's video, we are going to take a look at the Novation Peak and using it to create a bass, lead, and ARP sound for a future bass inspired track, and it sounds like this. So I'm always looking to see how much I can get out of one synth, because obviously when you make that purchase, you want it to do more. You don't want to just be like, okay, that's a cool bass and it makes that one bass and that's it. You want it to do obviously more than that. You spend a lot of money. So that's why I thought I'd do this video where I'm going to use it to create 3 sounds in one track. Obviously, if you've got plugins and stuff like that, you can use them. But for this, we're just going to use the Peak for everything and see how we go. So first up, let's look at making the bass. So let's start by initializing the patch, and we've just got the plain old simple sawtooth. First up, we want to look at getting that sort of nice wide full sounding bass. Now I've made a few respace videos on a couple of different in the past, but I thought I'd just whip through this one again because it's going to be used in the context of the whole track. So first up, we want to go to voice, and we're going to go to unison, and then we're going to change this to 8 voices. So there's 2, there's 3, 4, and then you can really hear we get that super full sound. From there, we're going to also look at the glide. We want to add a little bit of glide, so when we overlap MIDI notes, we're going to get that glide between the two. So we'll turn that on, and we're going to set that to about 80. From here, we're going to start to look at the sound section. So these are the 3 oscillators that we're using, and the mixer. So for the mix, let's get that we'll get that sorted. We can go full on oscillator 1 and 2, and then about 50% on oscillator 3. So you can hear we get a lot of sound there. We want to now pitch down all 3 oscillators to 16 feet. So now you can hear we get that nice weighted sound. And we're going to change oscillator 3 to a sine. So that's going to be, it's going to add that sort of nice rounded weight to the bottom. With oscillator 1 and 2, we're going to detune them from each other. So we're going to go, we'll go -5 on the fine and +7 on oscillator 1 on the fine. So get that nice rich sound. So as we come along, we've already handled the mixer. Next up, we want to look at the filter. So the filter's fully open at the moment. Let's knock that back to about 90. We're just below 90. It's all good. So now we're going to look at adding the envelope depth, which is going to send this mod envelope to this frequency, and that's a low pass frequency at 24 dB. So what we can do is, we're at 0 at the moment, we can increase that to about 23, and then we're going to look at the mod envelope. We want a little attack so we don't get that click at the start. We're going to go to about 45 on the decay, about 90 on the sustain, and then the release is kind of going to be just below halfway at 45. We can increase this a little bit, the frequency. Let's leave it as it is. It sounds pretty good. From here, we're going to add some overdrive and distortion. Let's move them back to 0, and let's get that overdrive. Let's go about 80 on the overdrive, and then the distortion, really bringing that low end up. Go to 75. lastly, we want to add some chorus to get some more width again. So let's go to about halfway, which is about 60 on the number there. And I think that's about it. So let's record that in, and then we'll move on to the next one, which will be the pad. Next up, we are going to look at the pad. So obviously, again, first thing, we're going to initialize the patch. We're going to, let's start with the mix so we can get the oscillators up to volume, and then when we start to make changes to it, you'll be able to hear those changes. So oscillator 1, 2, and 3 will be set to full volume. So at the moment, you can hear all those oscillators going. Next up, we want to start to look at the tuning. So we are going to tune all of them to 4 feet. So now that gets us a little bit higher register. And then as we come along, for oscillator 1, we're going to go to more. And then we're going to use this part here to select the winds preset. Oh, sorry, winds oscillator shape rather. For oscillator 2, we're going to change that to BS sine. Then oscillator 3, we're going to change that over to triangle. For the shape amount, we're going to set 1, 2, and 3 to about 40 on each, and then we're going to set LFO 1 over here as the source to change that shape. For oscillator 1, we're going to keep it as triangle. We're going to have no fade in, and then the speed is going to be about 110. So this is going to kind of give us a little bit more movement on the shape. To demonstrate what is actually going on with those shape amounts, you can see here we have the actual LFO speed, and if I bring it down, and then as I increase the speed, you'll be able to hear those changes being made. And you can hear that happening now. So let's knock it back a little bit. We'll go to 100, that seems good. Now that we've done that and we've set the LFO, let's start to look at the filter section. The filter's fully open at the moment, but we can bring that down to about 70. And we've got it set to a low pass, and it's going to be at 24 dB. Again, we're using the mod envelope 1, which is over here, to modulate the frequency. So for the amount, we want 40. And you can hear that click come through because this envelope is triggering this filter. The amp envelope, we're going to go 0. We'll go about 57. We're going to go full on the sustain. And then we're going to bring that release up to about 80. Then for the mod envelope, we are going to have the nice slow attack. And then we're going to increase the decay here. Sustain down a little bit. And then a nice slow release. We kind of get that eerie sort of pad sound there. From there, let's start to look at some of the effects. We're going to go overdrive. We're going to back that off to about 100. Distortion, about 40. Actually, we're going to pull down that overdrive a little bit more. Pull down that frequency to about 40. And then we're going to add some reverb in to really thicken that sound up. So there we go. I'm going to record that in and then we can move on to the next. So next up, we are going to look at that sort of rave ARP sound. Now the Peak has some great arpeggiated features and some arpeggiated patterns. So We don't have to worry about doing the gate from another plugin. We're going to use the ARP for everything on this. So obviously, again, first up, we're going to initialize the patch. Again, like I spoke about, we are going to go over to the ARP. We want to make sure that the clock is set to the right BPM, and for this, we got it set to 135. We're ARP type. Obviously, we want ARP on. There we go. The rhythm is going to be 8. And the ARP type is going to be chord 2. So when we play the sound, it's that rhythm that we all know of and we've heard like on a bunch of records, but for some reason it just still really works. So we've got that all set up. Now let's start to look at shaping the sound and getting the desired effect that we want. We want oscillator 1, 2, and 3 to be pitched up to 4 feet. And then for the mix, we want full on all of them. So now it sounds like nice high, a lot of energy in there. So for oscillator 1, we are going to change that to BS sign. Oscillator 2 is going to be saw, and oscillator 3 is going to be saw. We can use that same trick from before where we're going to detune the fine on 2 and 3 against each other to kind of add some more thickness. So I've gone minus 10, 11 on oscillator 2 and plus 16 on oscillator 3 to get that nice thick sound. From there, we're going to go over to we've already handled the mixer section. We're going to go over to the filter. Next up with the filter, we're going to pull that down to just over around 100. So we're at 102 there. Envelope depth is going to be not very much at 30. And then make sure we got the resonance down. And then for let's pull out the resonance. We want a little bit more bite in that sound. So we'll go 60 on that. Next, let's look at the amp and the mod envelopes. For the amp envelope, we're going to keep pretty quick down at 2. The decay is going to be set to 90. Sustain all the way full, so when we play that sound, it's going to continue the whole time we press down. And then 40 on the release. So remember, the amp envelope is essentially the volume of the synthesizer. Next, we'll look at the mod envelope, and then again, like I've been saying, it's the one that's affecting the filter. So I'm going to keep that attack pretty low at 2. Decay is going to be 75. Sustain is going to be a little bit lower at 35. We'll make it 40. And then the release is going to be a little bit more. We'll make it 50. And that's the sound that we have at the moment. Remember also, as you're recording in the parts, you can really utilize this filter so you can play along with the music. I find that having that and recording and playing along with the sections, you can kind of create the build-ups live, adds a little bit more to it than just drawing automation and whatnot. One thing as well that we're going to do is we're going to add some LFO1 depth to the frequency, to the filter frequency. This will add a little bit more movement, so when we're not touching the frequency knob, it will still add a little bit more. So let's add, we'll go full to start so you can hear it, and then we can back it off. And then for the rate, have it at 64. So if I pull this down, the frequency down, So you can hear it going crazy there. And let's pull this down to 64. You hear it slowly opening and closing. So let's back off the amount that we want this LFO to affect this frequency, because we just want a little bit of movement there. Let's increase this again to 100. And you can hear there in the background, it's opening a little bit and closing a little bit. Let's even back that off a little bit more to 30. From there, we kind of have a little bit going on. Let's look at overdrive and distortion. Let's pull those levels down. Get this up to 50, 55, and then distortion about 40. And then lastly, we want to add in some chorus and reverb to really thicken the sound up and give it some space. So chorus, getting some more width, go all the way to 60 on that one, and then the reverb, go 40 on there. So with the rest of the track playing and with the other elements that we recorded in before, it sounds like this. So there you go. We just made a future bass inspired track using the Novation Peak to create the bass, pad, and lead, or ARP. And hopefully this has given you a bit more of understanding of the Novation Peak, or just synths in general, to kind of get your own sound and sort of shape the synth to kind of meet the needs of your track. At the end of the day, hopefully you've enjoyed it, and the biggest thing is hopefully I've inspired you to create something today. And until next time, see you later.